This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Right off the bat, there we go. Big thanks to Linda Swain for opening in for me for a couple of days when my throat was suffering. Anyway, good morning to you. Welcome to the program. It's Wednesday, February the 28th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, and David Williams is producing the program. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial to get in the queue, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 86-26. So, as you heard Brian Medore say in the news, on a night where Mercer scores his 16th and Newhook chalks up another assist on the air, looking good out there, boys, and headed to a balmy high of 10 degrees today. It's good news for people who are tired of the winter. It really does start to drag on at this point of the year. But if you look at some of the images coming from, in particular, Marble Mountain has been decimated. We know they struggled to get open in the first place. There was a good weekend for those skiers and snowboarders who made it out there, and then the images of it, the hill virtually just washed away. And this warm temperature not going to help the White Hills either, but folks are appreciating the warmer weather today. Pardon me. So, well underway at the NL Winter Games out in Gander. An unfortunate start when it came to the fact that accommodations weren't ready for all the teams. Team Indigenous actually slept on the floor. I think that's been rectified, but good luck to all participants and all of their family members, their coaches and supporters. Good luck and have a bit of fun. Also, same thing to those participating in the National Special Olympics. Team NL is in Calgary participating. There's 70 persons around the team, so good luck. Have a lot of fun at the Special Olympics out in Calgary. They're competing in 7 different sports. 5-pin bowling, cross-country skiing, curling, floor hockey, skating, both figure and speed skating, and snowshoeing. So best wishes from all of us here at Open Line, and of course from the parents and caregiver support persons, coaches, volunteers. Love the Special Olympics. Hope they have a great time. All right, then. So we had a guy named Sean Chalk on the show some weeks back when a Regina family had discovered an unopened box of 1979 OPG hockey cards, which would obviously hold a bunch of Gretzky rookie cards. Now, Sean Chalk, who's known as the Gretzky of Gretzky memorabilia collectors, he has an incredible collection himself. He says if he was lucky enough to bid and win and get the box, he wouldn't even open it. You know, I guess it would keep the value of the contents entailed, but it has been sold at auction. $5 million Canadian. $5 million for a box of hockey cards. Unbelievable stuff. All right, let's start with education this morning. So it's Pink Shirt Day. When this first was a thing and everyone encouraged to wear pink, of course bringing awareness to the issue regarding bullying. Unfortunately for us, bullying has become a catch-all. You've heard the stories as much as I have. Student against student, student against teacher, and yes, teacher against student. I've been made aware via email of a really serious issue between a student and a teacher. The teacher with the verbal and harassment and emotional and abuse of this young autistic nonverbal child. It's really a horrific story. But we've got to do a better job in calling it what it is. If someone says your mother dresses you funny or makes fun of your freckles, some of that is the unfortunate reality of growing up, because the kids can be sometimes mean-spirited. But when it comes to acts of violence, it's not bullying any longer. So I think we've got to just be careful to call it exactly what it is, because sometimes it comes across quite innocuous if someone says, well, there was an incident of bullying at my school, when in fact if you dig in and get the details, there was fists thrown, haymakers landed. That's a crime. It's not bullying, that's violence. So anyway, it's Pink Shirt Day. And so I'm a little late catching up to some of these things. So there has been, as part of the Education Accord and a teachers' think tank, so the Minister responsible for Education, Crystal Howell, met with NLT President Trent Langdon and apparently some other teachers in the room. So they called the discussions very frank and very heavy. You know, we talk about the shortages when recruitment and retention and healthcare a lot, not necessarily enough in education. But predictably, as I tried to catch up with some of my emails, you know, people saying the teachers are always belly aching, wanting more and more and more money, more resources, overworked. You know the story. When in fact, I think if you take it a step further and you kind of listen to the entirety of the comments coming from the NLTA, when they talk about the mental well-being of the teachers, their mental well-being is the education environment. So when it's working better for teachers, inevitably it works better for your student, your child. So I think sometimes we get caught up in saying, well, everybody just wants more. That may indeed be the case, but if the teacher who might be burnt out, overworked, and maybe struggling mentally, that's going to, of course, put a strain on the classroom and the learning environment. So we're getting down to the brass tacks, but once again, task forces and summits and accords, some of them, of course, required to compile all the data here from the people on the front lines, but so that teachers' think tank, apparently it was a productive session, so that's a good one, I suppose. And in the world of learning, we've had conversations about public libraries. Some people think they've gone to the way of the dodo bird, but that's not the case. And it's more than simply just books and periodicals available in your local public library. So the government, once again, through the Minister's office, Minister Howell, $600,000 for the public library system. Okay, break it down a bit. $500,000 of that is for the Provincial Information and Library Resources Board's core operating grant. And the other $100,000 is going to be spent in other areas of operations. But here's the problem. For a decade or more, the funding for the libraries, for grants for the libraries, has not changed. Yet the cost of books and to rotate the resources in the library has increased by about 40%. So you might think that the library is not offering what it once did and it's not the community hub that it once was. Apparently the numbers are up and they're unable to keep up with the times because the grants haven't changed, and yet obviously, like everything that we touch, the costs have gone up dramatically, some 40%. So anyway, you want to take on the library issue? I'm into it. Let's keep going. All right. And of course, you can go to the library to use the internet. This is a big issue, a big story, and it's going to take a lot of hopefully meaningful conversation to get down to what's good, what's bad, what should be shelved, what should be considered. And this is about the Online Harms Act. So if you listen to some who their initial reaction would be that this is an effort to censor political speech. It's an attack on freedom of speech, which we don't have in this country. We have freedom of expression, which comes with a cost. It's not the why, it's the how. If the intention here is to protect children from predators, which are lurking around every digital corner, it's absolutely true. Talking about the spread of misinformation and disinformation, the problem is that who is going to be the arbiter of truth? It's so subjective that we're really setting ourselves up. Now, I don't discount the fact that there's lots of problems, and you know it when you see it when we talk about hate speech. But there's some very fine lines in here that are going to be basically left up to subjective opinions, subjective reading when it comes to human rights complaints. So here's the two issues inside, because some of the penalties are extraordinary. Now, there are caveats that talk about shelving frivolous cases. But under the Harper government, they did away with Section 13 of the Human Rights Act. And here's what it says. It is a discriminatory practice to communicate or cause to be communicated hate speech by means of the internet or any other means of telecommunications in a context of which the hate speech is likely to promote detestation or vilification of an individual or group of individuals on the basis of prohibited ground of discrimination. That's a mouthful. Then you get into what the differences are between detestation, which is hate speech, as per the language coming from the Supreme Court of Canada, versus disdain or dislike, which is not characterized as hate speech. So some of the examples used, and some of the examples, of course, cases of hyperventilating. But if you're chiming in on the war in Gaza, you're chiming in on the war in Ukraine, you're talking about anti-Semitism or Islamophobia or hatred for the LGBTQ community, whether it be talking about the Prime Minister with any sort of disdain, or Mr. Polyev or Singh or May or anybody else, that's one thing. But it is going to be tricky to get this right. I think we can all, regardless of your political ideology, think that a better effort to protect children on the internet is absolutely overdue. But how does this bill get extended to putting some sort of lid on people's want, ability, and right to speak their mind? Now, hate when you see it. And of course, the hate that is spewed on the internet does indeed manifest itself in real time and in real daily lives. The examples are endless. And it has caused some severe trauma and in some cases tragedy when hate is whipped up, because it's easy enough to be frenzied and operating in a fury when your fingers are dancing across the keyboard, and a lot of it is hate. Just go to social media, you can see it all the time. But that Online Harms Act, we can and we should be talking about it, because it's not why it's a good idea, it's how it gets executed. You want to take it on? We can do it. This is an interesting story, and bravo to whoever worked on this. And this is, pardon me, in reaction to the housing crunch and crisis, which is a very real thing in every province and territory in the country. The blame was quickly assigned to international students. Right? We heard from the immigration minister and the housing minister, that would be Miller and Fraser respectively. And they really pointed a distinct finger at international students. In addition to that, they said it's all about the bad actors, right? It's all about those private colleges that are just using the international students as a cash cow. You know, $20,000 per, injecting thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars into their own coffers. And yes, the international students' contribution to the economy, the GDP, is absolutely a measure that we can include in this conversation, but I believe Minister Miller and Minister Fraser, and then the imposition of a 35% decrease in study permits, they kind of pointed the finger a little bit in the wrong direction. It looks like now, based on the research that this one journalist has done, I wish I had their name in front of me, it's not the privates, it's the publics. And here's some of the high-level takeaways. Of the 30 Canadian colleges and universities granted the most international study permits last year, all but one are public. Just 10 Ontario public colleges account for nearly 30% of all study permits issued across the country over the past 3 years. 12 Ontario public colleges have at least tripled their annual permits since 2018. So that data really calls into question the rationale for what the ministers have both said about the implication of international students on the housing market. And, you know, you look at the $1.6 million to be spent out in the city of Mount Pearl for housing. I think we can all boil it back. You know, you can say pump the brakes on immigration. Housing starts in the country last year were just over 233,000. And if some 2.45 people occupy homes on the average across the country, we simply have to change our tune and our mindset about housing. So permits and skilled trades are every bit as big a part of the problem, and the types of homes being built. You know, I can't believe we're still having conversations about modular homes or prefabs or what have you, because they've been a thing for a long time. I mean, these are not new concepts, but yet we're talking about it as if someone's had some eureka moment that there's something other than a 1,200 square foot bungalow, right? Anyway, you want to take on any of those stories from either angle? We can do it. And good morning to the folks out in Trapassi. And the breakwater, gone again. Some $900,000, and it didn't last jig time. So the whole issue about how and where we build is going to dominate the conversation. Onside of shortage of skilled tradespeople, onside the permitting process and the time that it takes to get a permit, it's how and where you build. It's going to be a big part of the story. Now, for the town of Trapassi, they chipped in at about $120,000 on the tax implications for the breakwater to be built back, and now it's gone. So if someone in the area would like to chime in about next steps or what you see, we're happy to take it on. But on that front, there's a couple of issues that are very closely linked. For people and investing in your pension, the big hope is return, right? And then there's the concept, which is being attended to in different forms of factors, whether it be at hedge funds or big mutual funds and or pensions. And the concept of divesting in fossil fuels to invest in greener stock and funds. Again, people want a sizable return. They want their assets to be protected. But there's been some analysis done by Shift Action for Pension Wealth and Planet Health, looking at 11 of the country's largest pension managers against the international, what they call best practices. So we're not talking about small potatoes here. We're talking about $2.2 trillion in these funds, only the big 11. And when we talk about all the pensions, that would be, whether it be the Alberta pension plan for their public sector workers, and they sit on huge amounts of money. So is that something that you give any attention to or concern of, is how your pension money is being invested? I'm sure for some people it absolutely does. Some pensions score higher than others. Apparently the best, if you're looking at the divesting in fossil fuels, is in Quebec. The question that was not answered in this news story was some evaluation of returns. So yes, if people are concerned with how and where their pension money is being invested, fair enough, and you can bring your opinion forward here this morning. But no analysis on return. So the pensions that moved away, even if it was slightly, how did the comparison go between revenues earned and investment in a greener so-called fund versus what was once in the portfolio, an investment in fossil fuels? So it's one thing to give me the big numbers, but hopefully there's a follow-up story coming with exactly what the returns look like, because let's face it, many people, even folks who are climate change aware and activists on that front, there's still, the control of your assets, the value for money invested, and the returns. Okay, so let's take that on. Sticking with this similar story. So looking at the crab stock, snow crab stock for this year, and nothing has really changed, but what the concern might be, as we talk about the FFAW and the ASP and the 6-week battle last week and the arbitrator's decision, even though the FFAW said they do it all over again, because they say they have a job to do, one of the worries, maybe coming faster than many people would hope, is the temperature of the water. Regardless of your stance on anything regarding, say, for instance, climate change, measuring the temperature of the water is just a fact of reality on the ground, in the water today. So there was a distinct cooling period between 2012 and 2018. Then there was a couple of years of extremely high temperatures, especially on the bottom, and the implication on the crab itself. So we know, even if you're not a fish harvester, it just stands to reason that the snow crab, they flourish in colder water. So when we're talking about the exploitable age and size, it's between 9 and 13 years old, shell size of over 94 millimeters for males. You can't keep the females, period. But now, with the water warming, it's taken at least 2 to 4 years longer for the crab to reach maturity. So we know landed values are huge in the snow crab business. Apparently last year the landed value was some $258 million. But this should be a story that has to be carefully considered. So the stock is now unpredictable. They're talking about a pretty similar state of affairs this year versus last. We know there was some 51 million tons in the snow crab industry, and we can take it on whether you be a harvester on the processing side and the ruling of the arbitrator, and now the evaluation of what damages or losses actually look like. The FFAW have asked for 5 years worth of documents to talk about exactly what damages may be. So that's a big story. But that warming water story, of course, is huge. Yesterday at the steps of the Confederation building, the Registered Nurses Union were protesting about the privatization of healthcare in the country and in this province, in large part looking at the travel nurses issue. So you can say, well, there's two schools of thought, right? Now, the travel nurses is 100% a concern here. People focusing on a 5-month period where there was almost $36 million paid, and lots of controversy and lots of tentacles we can take on. But the schools of thought on privatization is it used to be that if you were the muckety-muck, the 1%, and you were on a wait list to get your hip replaced, and you thought, well, I can get it done down the road and put $35,000 cash on the barrelhead. I'm going to get out of the queue and I'm going to take care of myself with a private doctor and private clinic. But then this one story from Quebec, this lady who badly needed a hip replacement, and she started a GoFundMe. So we're going down a road very quickly. You might say, look, it's fine. It's fine to have some private offerings. There already is private health care. But then people who think down the road is that what happens when and if you're working for yourself in a private clinic, you get to pick and choose your patients. So the folks with the most complex needs would be in the public system, doctors in the private sector able to pick whoever they want to treat, and then consequently, you talk about shortages. Well, the public system, you may indeed see more people taken out of the queue, but with the complexity of needs that might be very likely serviced in only the public sector, there's a big conversation yet to be had here, because this is coming, it's snowballing. We're seeing more and more of these types of stories. Travel nurses, sure, they're a big issue. And on that front, the health minister is calling in the comptroller of the province. So people are asking for the Auditor General. Fair enough. I think the comptroller is well positioned to do the review. So basically, inside job description definitions, the Comptroller General develops and maintains the government's financial control framework and monitors compliance with. So generally it's a guide for the ministry and public sector activities such as procurement and spending. Still some huge questions to be asked about that travel nurse arrangement, but if you want to take it on, we can do exactly that. How are we doing on the phone, Dave? I want to get to the calls. Voice is running out already. Very quickly, Interestingly, I knew a couple of years ago that the Germans had applied to conduct low-level flying in Labrador. It hasn't happened up there for a couple of decades. The protests and the clashes were very, very real, and it saw the discontinuation of that low-level flying. So that's under 1,000 feet, and the supersonic noise, and the people talk about the impact it had on the caribou, for instance. Even though I think there's some data out there that shows that maybe it scattered the caribou, but the caribou and the hunting didn't change a whole lot. But it looks like then Defence Minister Anita Anand and Premier Fury are both on side with this. So they're using the war in Ukraine as a reason as to why some of this testing is needed. But don't be surprised if this fast tracks. But low-level flying in Labrador, never thought we'd see it again, but it looks like they're coming. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Openline. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. We're going to kick it off with Tim. He wants to talk tourism. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Tim, you are on the air.
Hello?
Hi, Tim.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you.
I'm one of those super seniors. Super senior is somebody over 70 years of age. And sometimes we haven't got too much to do, and we think about different things.
What are you thinking about this morning?
Recently have to come in my mind. Barring Park, I've been in there a couple of times walking. That's a beautiful park.
It is.
But it's one thing missing. We need Newfoundland dogs and Newfoundland ponies in there. Not only for the tourism, but for everybody else. In the wintertime, you could have a slide, they can go for a slide. In the summertime, go on cart. But wouldn't that be nice for tourism or even local people? They can get between Newfoundland dog and Newfoundland pony and get the picture taken.
I think it's lovely. If you go to Signal Hill on a summer day, there's very often a Newfoundland dog and its owner up there, and that dog is the subject of hundreds of photographs every day. So your idea is, I think, spot on. And for folks who have never seen a Newfoundland pony, and I bet you there's plenty of people.
I have seen Newfoundland pony.
You have not?
I've seen Newfoundland dogs out walking.
Yeah.
But it's a thought anyway. Now, the barring, I understand they have a committee in there that runs that. I must say they do an excellent job. And walking the trails in there are really nice. So if somebody's looking for a place to walk, I would recommend Barring Park.
Yeah, Bowring Park is lovely, an absolute gem. There's no doubt about it. I like your idea, though. You know, how exciting to have a couple of storyboards and information boards about the Newfoundland pony itself and or the Newfoundland dog, who could simply be on the roam with their walkers or owners. But for the ponies, you know, and a little opportunity for a so-called petting farm, learn a bit about something that's, you know, unique to the province. I think that's a great idea. Why not?
That's my first idea. My second idea. During the summertime, on the weekends and statutory holidays, we should have buses going around St. John's picking up people at a low cost, or whatever the case may be. That's the mechanics, how it's going to operate. But bring them into Barring Park. Also, bring them into Salmon Nature Park.
So you're talking about something in addition to public transit like Metrobus?
Yes.
Okay.
They use the Metrobus. I mean, they don't be busy on the weekends. Are very slow. I'm sure they got a bus or two that they can go around different locations. You can go down, say, to Balmain Park, you know, Monday Pond or different areas of St. John's and pick up people.
Have you been to the Salmon Nature Park?
Yeah, bring them in Salmon Nature Park or Barring Park or whatever the case may be. Even Topsail Beach you want to.
We're up the shore of Fairland for a picnic.
There's a lot of people around here, like myself. If I want to go to Salmon Nature Park, and I can get on a bus for $4 or $5 instead of driving all the way out there and driving back, I'll pay it. I'll be happy.
Fair enough. It's a nice day for a walk today, Tim. Are you going to make your way into the park?
Yeah.
No? Did you have another idea you'd like to share?
Yeah, my third idea.
Okay, let's go.
I think Newfoundland could be the major tourism destination for all of North America in the summertime if our resources was properly developed. Now, I'm going way back up. We got Tree Pond Barrens up there. Then he comes on down to the golf course. You got the Fluviary, and you got Long Pond. River flowing out of Long Pond, Rennie's River. Why can't you rent a canoe or a kayak in Tree Pond Barrens and go on down there? There's only two areas you would have any problem in this. One is in Sliding Rock, him to make a bit of a detour around that.
Yeah.
Down where the Rennies River, where the pool used to be. Other than that, it's clear sailing. And you go right on down to the bottom of Quailapida. And where you at then, you're at the gut. And at the gut you could have boats there. Cod jigging, going out, you're looking at whales, icebergs.
Yeah, there's a couple of tour opportunities that begin inside Kitty Vitty in the gut. But yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of places and things to do and people to see in the entirety of the province.
In that boat, you can go back up and you can see the spout and different birds.
It's a good hike into the spout.
Then you go up to Bay Boars in Witless Bay and the bird colonies offshore.
Yeah, people do indeed do exactly that. Yeah. Tim, I appreciate you sharing your ideas here as a super senior this morning. Would you like to say anything else quickly before I take another one?
One more.
Okay.
What I'd like to have is a cruise ship stationed in St. John's that I can go down and pay a few dollars and go up the east coast of Newfoundland, up Labrador, and then head towards England to get all the ice up around that area.
There's an opportunity to do that.
And then come down the west coast of Newfoundland and come back to St. John's. I personally will pay to go on something like that.
Yeah, there are some of those cruise opportunities. Now, St. John's is not the port of call for them, but some of those cruise opportunities do indeed make their way to the province. I'd like to go on one
We
day.
used to have one out of Lewisport, but I think that stopped.
I believe you're right.
I don't think that's available anymore.
No, I don't think so. So I do know that there's one cruise ship that comes. I don't know if it comes every single year, but it does cruise around the province. And whether or not that's on the agenda for this upcoming cruise season, I'm not sure. But maybe I'll take a look. And if we can find out something that might be of interest to you, we'll let you know.
Yeah. Now maybe you can answer this question for me.
Okay, last one.
Lieutenant Governor and Vladimir Park got about 50 acres of land there. Why has the Lieutenant Governor there with half a dozen to a dozen staff members there, living like a king? Why shouldn't she work on the Confederation building? Our Premier works on the Confederation building in an office, and take the Colonial building and the castle there. What a place you can have shows. And what it means, really is, Newfoundland got a great history. We had somebody who can write a play or something about the history of Newfoundland. That'd be nice.
Yeah, there's some of those out there too. And the Colonial Building, they've done a lovely job restoring it. And there's, I think, fair question to be asked about the role of the Lieutenant Governor and the amount of land that the office occupies. That'd be a great spot if we're talking about the need for development and need for homes.
Her staff members there,
yeah,
besides getting good government jobs, they're given free accommodations there.
Well, she is. Her and her husband are. Yeah.
No, but there was them there.
I think there's only one staffer that lives.
You tell me the one on Bannerman Road. I grew up on Bannerman Street. When I go on Bannerman Road, that's where the three-story one, that's where the cook lives. And then we go in and go down towards the end, that's where the gardeners are.
The gardener does live on site too, you're right.
On Bannerman Road, I don't know who in the heck is staying in that one, but it's a sign up there private on the door.
I'm not entirely sure. Tim, I appreciate your time and sharing your ideas here this morning. After the break, I go. Stay in touch.
But give some thought to it.
I will.
To my way of thinking, I'm planting seeds.
And I appreciate you doing that here this morning.
The idea, the people get tied up with mechanics. How is it going to operate?
Well, everything starts with the idea.
Then you can get the committees on the go. You got no board of trade. Maybe they might be interested into it. But
they could be. Tim, I have to run, but I appreciate you planting the seeds.
My wife is mad with me for phoning in.
Oh, tell her everything's okay.
I'm married over 60 years.
Congratulations. What's your wife's name? What's your wife's name?
Oh, I wouldn't tell you that. No.
I didn't ask how old she is. I just asked what her name is.
Get into trouble.
Okay. Well, I don't want to get me or you in any trouble.
She is with 5 children.
Well done. I'm one of 5. I'm the oldest of 5, as a matter of fact.
Well, I got 5 children, and every one of them got a degree, if not more than 1 degree.
Congratulations. Boys or girls?
I got 3 boys and 2 girls.
Exact opposite in my house. 3 girls, 2 boys. Tim, off I go, sir. Nice talking to you this morning. Take care. Okay.
One of my children, between my family and my family, he graduated.
Yeah.
From university, as a medical doctor, and he went through the medical school on scholarships. He's retired. He says, why should his older brother, who's in the police force, be able to retire? You know, and they expect the doctors and everything else to work until their 80s or no. No, he says, heck with that.
Well, good for him and his ability to retire. I try not to think about it too much because I'll drive myself around the bend.
He couldn't do the specialty he did. He couldn't do it here in Canada. He had to go down the States.
What was his specialty?
When he came back, he went to Edmonton, and they were building condominiums here. Now his wife is a doctor also.
What was his discipline?
Two of them, they went to the bank and got a loan of money, and he bought made down payments on a dozen condominiums. And he says, when he retires, if he needs money, he can sell one of the condominiums.
It must be nice.
That's smart.
No, absolutely. Well, you got to be smart to get through med school and smart with your money. Tim, I really do have to say goodbye, sir, but I appreciate your time. Say hello to your wife for me.
No, I wouldn't dare.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm not that brave.
Drop that. Okay, talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye, Tim.
Okay, goodbye.
There we go. Let's, Dave, yes or no? Break first? Break it is. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 7. And Barry, you're on the air.
Hey, Paddy, how you doing?
Doing okay. How about you?
You must forget pausing people asking you, how you doing?
No, not at all. Thanks for asking. How about you? You doing okay?
Here, I'm doing well. I took the day off. Anyway, I wanted to make this call. Down around the east end of town, there's the city are putting up new signs pointing out Signal Hill, Cape Spear. They're beautiful signs, nice and clean. Long overdue to have the old ones replaced that were falling down. But anyway, it's all there, the rooms. Anyway, I sort of works in the tourist industry. I spends a lot of time in the summer doing charters, driving people on the cruises, one thing or other. And I'll often ask them, did they visit the Terry Fox statue? They said, no, why, where's it to? Anyway, there's no signs up pointing or promoting Terry Fox's statue. And I'm thinking that should be added to these signs because it's a very important tourist attraction. People would love to see it, but yet Where's To is hid away. Where's To is down behind on Water Street behind the South Pole, down the Harbour Authority parking lot. And it's right down on the bottom, and you could walk by it and never see it. Now, last year, the cruise ship The World was in. I had a 10-hour charter on that ship, and every time my bus was loaded, I come up, I said, now, anybody know where Terry Fox is? And the Americans, most people other than people in Canada don't know who he was. And I'd tell them the little story, and anyone there from Canada, they say, oh, well, we know, and then I get them to tell the story. So on the way out of the parking lot from Pier 17, within 100 feet of the stop sign, and I don't know the name of that hill down on the bottom where them 5 houses were built there, the rock houses for some fella built for his daughter. I don't know what they're called. But anyway, it's to the left down behind the building, and I'd stop and I'd point at it. There it is down there. Now, that boat was in for a couple of days because of bad weather, and once I told people that it was there, it seemed like it spread around, and a lot of people visited it. And the people, I would say there's people here in St. John's don't know where it's to because it's not advertised. And it's a very important tourist attraction, and I'm sure people just as soon visit that than visit Cape Spear or Signal Hill. And we're making a lot of money off his name and research for cancer, and I'd like for him to be remembered. And his statue visited one thing or other. So I think the city of St. John's should add that to them signs, the new signs, nice fancy signs they're putting down around the East End, and I'd like for the tourists to find it. Well, anyway, that's all I want to say.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I've been to the Terry Fox Memorial Park before. The statue is lovely. I've met the sculptor several times in the past. Lubin Boykov is the man who made that Terry Fox statue. And you're right, it's hard to find unless you know where it is and someone's pointing you in the right direction. It's a little bit off the beaten track. Now, it's not necessarily hidden and it's impossible to find, but you're right, there's no signs telling you how to get there or where it is. So I think that's a fair idea. It is a nice spot. The Association of Terry Fox in the province, dipping his leg into the water here on his way on the Marathon of Hope, of course, which ended just outside of Thunder Bay. But that's a good idea. And I mean, it's just easy enough.
Yeah.
Easy enough to
Anyway,
do.
I'm going to make a point to see the one in Thunder Bay, and I'm sure there are people in St. John's that don't know where's to. And I'm even after stopping tourists on the road, I see their license plate. Ontario, did you see the Terry Fox statue? They said, no, why, where's to? Oh, we're going to go back there right away. Anyway, thanks for your time, and I don't listen to the show because there's only FM on me bus, and I miss it listening to it. But anyway, you have a good day.
Same to you, Barry. And if you want to tune in, you can't make it at 9 or at 9 o'clock in the morning. Wherever you get a podcast, you can find Openline these days. So just in case you wanted to check it out. Appreciate the time. Good idea.
Right on.
Thanks, Barry.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Loads of good ideas flowing here this morning. How about that? Line number 2. Mark, you're on the air.
Morning, Patty. How's it going?
Okay. How about you?
Pretty good. I'm just calling in today again about housing, and specifically about the St. John's Homelessness Acute Response Task Force, which is better known as Premier's Task Force on Housing. And I think it's time. Look, we have not gotten anywhere. We don't know what's going on. We've not heard publicly what if folks from encampments will arrive in this hotel, which has really been the only solution that we've heard publicly about. And I've just been going over the terms of reference of the task force over the last couple of days. Yesterday, I wrote to End Homelessness to say, the time has come, you guys, if Doug Pawson at End Homelessness is concerned about ending homelessness for real, it's time to leave the task force.
But no, Mr. Pawson could only be there as a contributing voice because, of course, he has no authority and or money or control to actually flip switches and see homes built. So what would be satisfied by him leaving the task force? Just a symbolic gesture?
Yeah, your point is absolutely 100% on, Patty. He does not have the decision-making power, and he's not able to make those decisions. It's not going anywhere. There are people still living in tents. It's been over 60 days since John Abbott said that they would be out of those tents and into homes. It's not happening, and he's camouflaging the inefficacy of the entire task force. He's basically the proxy on the ground for the Premier. Camouflaging and showing and he's there, Patty. He's there. Sorry, I'm mixing my words this morning a little bit. Haven't had enough coffee. He's in the way of moving forward. The government needs to be just left on its own in order to deal with this. They're failing, and the public pressure that we saw in the fall, that we saw throughout Christmas, that we saw, it's essentially dissipated. But nothing has happened. Nothing has been fixed. Even the terms of reference of the task force have not really been the principles have not been fixed, have not been worked on. The wrap up talks about when all persons experiencing homelessness at the encampment are supported and have freely moved to long-term shelter housing solutions. But that's not happening. People are still going back there. There's a low barrier aspect to Tent City. There's a triage aspect to Tent City. It's for people that can't access shelter in other ways, and that is not being replaced, and it's still going. And now it's time that Doug, and for that matter, for the mayor, to move on, to recognize and tell the public that this is not working, that we haven't found a solution, and for us to continue to work on other solutions.
Well, fair enough. I knew full well when you can strike a task force all you like, when we're talking about things like building homes and or changing the way we monitor and enforce rules and regulations at shelters, what have you. I knew this was going to take some time, which was time that we did not have. And it's amazing to me that all of a sudden we're pretending that this is something new that just happened because of, the pandemic. Because housing and the lack of and the issue of homelessness around the precipice of homelessness has been the reality in this province and across the country forever and a day. So we're just catching up. And it's, I think in this province, if it wasn't for the fact that someone had the idea to pitch a tent across from Confederation Building, we'd still be just spinning our wheels. That really symbolic presence of the tents across from the house of the home of government, I think really spurred on more conversation. I'll add to it that, for starters, the way we use emergency shelters is ridiculous. And secondly, here we are, we're told that people will be able to use the transition home, that is the Comfort Inn, in March. Today's the second last day of February. We don't even know what eligibility or criteria or vetting even looks like here. We're not even entirely sure about the sum of the entire cost. We're not really sure what the presence of healthcare professionals on site will be. We think it's going to be one person to talk about physical health, one social worker, one person dealing with mental health, one person dealing with addictions, and that doesn't really sound like the wraparound support that you would think would be involved with 140 people living temporarily, we hope, at the Comfort Inn. So I'll give you the final thought, Mark. Go ahead.
Well, it's gone on long enough. We had, government and the city both had the opportunity to provide mid and long-term solutions. No, we're not going to build homes in 5 days. We're not going to build homes in a week. It's not going to happen. There's other solutions. But even within those other solutions, Patty, there is nothing going on at Tent City different than what was going on a year and a half ago to address homelessness. So there are the government has not committed to more ACT, FACT, and NAVNet teams. We're not seeing the mental health supports. None of these things are happening. So, at what point can the mayor and Doug remain on this task force and cover up the fact that the government has completely failed? And I think that time has come, and I think it's time for Doug specifically to step out of there. And I hope the board members of End Homelessness St. John's are listening and can have a chat with him and say, time has come.
I appreciate your time, Mark. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, Patty.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we'll try to get back on track here at the break. So when we come back, we're talking farming, Pink Shirt Day, NL Housing, whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Just a quick reminder, I meant to say it off the top. If you have sent me an email since Friday at 12 noon, I came back today to see literally hundreds. So if you need or want me to see it today, please resend it. That'll make my life easier, if you don't mind. Let's go to line number 5. Everett, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello, Everett.
I wasn't sure. I got a beep in the ear when you said my name, so I didn't get it.
No worries. You're on the air.
I'm here this morning to talk about something that affects every person alive, and that's food supply. I don't know, are you aware of what's going on over in Europe with the farmers?
Yeah, I see some of it.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit on television, but nothing like what's going on over there. I have a friend over in the Netherlands, and that's where it started over there about a year or two ago, where the government of the day over there decided that they wanted to put 3,000 farmers out of business. So they've forced them to sell their land to them, and they said the main reason they wanted the land was to build houses for the immigrants that were coming in. But now, since that is after spreading right across every country in Europe, and I don't know all the details of what they're trying to force farmers to do or not to do, but from what I can understand is they want farmers to get rid of their cows.
Well, there's a few things at play, and there's some different issues in different parts of Europe as to why we see some of the protests. Some of it has to do with the trade deal between the EU and South America. So that trade bloc is called Mercosur, and so the worry there is unfair competition. And so that's the root for some of the protests, for instance, in France. Then there's some other issues with fertilizer restrictions. I think that's what spurred on the Belgian initial protest. Then you're right, some of it is about expropriating, potentially, farmland for a variety of things, including housing. So I think there's not just one link between all the protests. There's different factors in different countries, but there are, of course, going to be some overlaps.
Yeah, well, like I say, I don't know why the push is to get rid of cows, because, I mean, cows produce milk, they produce meat, so that's a food supply. But in the meantime, of course, you got the Bill Gates of the world that are coming up with artificial meat and artificial butter, artificial milk, made out of plant food. So, I don't know. A cow produces milk by eating grass. So I don't know how they can produce milk, through plants or meat, even without using a lot of chemicals.
Yeah, I mean, the issue regarding cows, now I think some of the way it's overstated that everyone's trying to get rid of all the cows, I don't think that's actually what's happening. And the fact of the matter is, lab-born meats and stuff have not worked. People aren't buying it. And that's going to be the be-all and end-all, because if no one's buying it, no one's going to be making it. So one of the issues that I think we don't talk about when we talk about methane and or cows and or burps and farts is their diet. So you say they eat grass, you're 100% right, but there's all sorts of work being done out there with, adopting some seaweed into their diet as well. Because I don't think the cow is going to care a whole lot as long as he or she is full. So... Anyway, I don't think there's Bill Gates is not trying to get rid of all the cows. Bill Gates is trying to make money.
Yeah, that's right. And one way to make money, of course, if what he's producing and you can't get it the real thing, then you got to buy what he's producing. So, I've seen ads on television now that the last one that started is butter. Except we don't need the cow. I mean, that's part of their ad, right? So, I did hear that it was in the UK that the farmers were told to kill off up to 1 million cows. Now I don't know. That seems to be an awful lot of cows. But I mean, if you kill off that many cows, that's going to be a shortage of food supply somewhere on the way.
There's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 billion cows in the world.
Yeah, well, 1 million mightn't seem very much compared to 1 billion, but that's just a start, right? Now you talk about the fertilizer reduction. Well, I mean, here in Canada so far, I mean, we all know that the price of food has been escalating pretty fast. But I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Well,
some of the input costs will come back to earth a little bit, though.
Pardon?
Some of the input costs that the farmers were pointing to, for instance, the price of fertilizer, has come back to earth. It's nowhere near where it was at its peak last year or the year before.
Well, the fertilizer cost.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what it is for this year. We haven't ordered our fertilizer, but when the Prime Minister of our country tells farmers to cut back 30% on the use of fertilizer, I mean, farmers they're not going to use more fertilizer than they need to give them a bumper crop, let's say. So if you cut back 30% on fertilizer, you're cutting back 30% on your production.
Yeah, so no one, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're the farmer here, no one's been told that you have to use 30% less. There's
not yet.
All of this at this current moment in time is optional. Am I right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But when the farmers don't pick up on it, it's going to be forced on them. And then, like I say, if you cut back 30% on your fertilizer use, you're cutting back 30% on your production.
This is a question that comes from ignorance. Are there options for the traditional fertilizer that you've been using? Maybe some of the things that are used in more organic type farms. So are there options out there available, for instance, like manure or anything else?
Well, again, you have manure, you got to have cattle.
Or whatever type of manure, chickens or otherwise, yeah.
Well, I know years ago, first when I started farming, the fish plants here in Newfoundland, I mean, there used to be a lot of wastage, right?
Yeah, the offal.
Offal, and so they, somewhere around the way, they decided to turn it into fertilizer. So, I mean, as a farmer, of course, buy local fertilizer and all this, but we couldn't buy it. It was contracted at someone down the States. Whatever they produced went to the States.
Oh.
So, we still had to go back to our regular fertilizer. So, I don't know. To me, it don't make sense. I mean, like I said, there's two main people that produce 85% of the food that's consumed in the world. That's farmers and fishermen.
Sure.
I would say nature probably produces about 15%, and people that grow their own, stuff like that. So if they push farmers out of business or make it so costly to do business, I mean, it's going to drive the price of food up, and I think there's going to be a lot more starvation in the world. Because a lot of what we produce in Canada, and that ends up going in to poorer countries that are probably not producing enough food for themselves, right? So if you got to cut back on your production here, well, we might not starve to death, but someone in the world is going to suffer for it.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I try to talk about agriculture here in the province and the reduction in the number of farms, the amount of production that actually takes place here. When I think we've kind of undershot the numbers recently, the whole thought that we import 90 of what we consume, which is, I think, just inside big retailers, big grocery stores, not the reality for how much food is actually produced. Everett, I appreciate the time. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, well, no, that bit is what I see on worldwide, right? But locally, well, like I said, I started farming back in, I think it was 1970, 1971.
Are you the farmer from up around Woodland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wooddale.
Yeah.
Oh, and well, at that time we had a railway, but we had the government of Newfoundland then had very little money, coming in, because they were, we never had oil then. That started, and the fishery was the main reason we're here, I guess. But anyway, when we had a railway, I'm talking about how we are at the mercy of farmers on the mainland when it comes to, the price-wise. They determine what we're going to sell for, practically. And so anyway, back then, when we started here in Wooddale first, I mean, new land, you're not supposed to grow potatoes in new land because you'll end up with a disease called rhizotony. And they recommended growing turnips first, okay? So farmers here, of course, we put out so many acres of turnips. A lot more was going to be consumed here in Central. So anyway, we wanted to ship a carload of turnips to St. John's. And we checked on the price, and we found out that PEI could send a carload of turnips to St. John's, and with half the price would cost us from Bishop Falls to St. John's. So now, was somebody subsidizing the freight cost or what?
Sounds like it.
And it sounds like to me. So I'm wondering if that's not still going on.
Well, the government of PEI does subsidize the potato industry. That is for sure. That much we know.
Yeah, but when they do that, then it gives them another advantage over Newfoundland farmers, right?
Of course it does. Everett, I appreciate you making time for the program. We got to get to the newscast. Stay in touch.
Okay.
All the best.
Anyway, I may call you back someday because there's a lot more I'd like to say.
Sure, and we can do exactly that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. So it is indeed time for the news. Those of you in the queue, stay right there. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Very quickly, before we get to Ed on line number 3, I want to say happy birthday to Tony Pennell. Tony's only 11, but she likes tuning into the show with her dad, Stephen. So happy birthday to you, Tony. Hope you have a tremendous day. Let's go to line number 3. Ed, you are on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning. I'm doing grand. How about you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
I'd like to talk about Newfoundland housing. I have a family member that applied for Newfoundland housing in the neighborhood of 6 years ago. They did show him some units at that time, but they weren't suitable for him and his family. So they went and rented a property, and they're still renting that property. But in the last few weeks, Newfoundland Housing called and approached them and told them that they would give them $300 a month toward their rent, but they would have to give up their position on the list. Like, it really don't make sense to me what Newfoundland Housing are doing. This individual has been paying rent for 6 years, and now Newfoundland Housing is going to give them $300 to offset their rent.
Yeah, they're basically trying to address the wait list for units by doing things like that. Last time I remember seeing a number, there was something like 2,200 people on the wait list.
But are they going to give 2,200 people $300 a month to get their names off the list?
No.
Well, what are they doing?
I don't know, and I don't know how they selectively choose which families or people to offer some rent subsidy to, but that's not the first time I've heard this story.
No, it's crazy. For me, like, it's fine for the individual who's getting $300 a month. That's good. I got no problem with that. But accept whatever you can get. But for the government to do something like that, it's the same as with them, the health care that they're going on with the nurses, the millions of dollars that they spent on that. Like, they seem to be throwing money at everything, and they're getting further and further behind.
And as we have seen and understood, if we're just talking healthcare, for instance, a population of about 535,000 people or thereabouts, and we're spending about $4 billion on healthcare per year. If money was the only issue, we'd have it licked, but apparently not.
Yeah. Crazy, huh?
It is. So what has this family member of yours decided to do? Accept the rent subsidy or remain on the list?
Yeah, why wouldn't it?
Fair enough. That's what I would do. Absolutely. And what are they paying for rent? Like, what kind of unit are they renting?
They're renting a house.
Okay.
They're paying, I don't know, $1,100 a month or whatever. They've been renting this now for, 5 or 6 years or something. But basically, this is cash for life. They're paying them back money for 4 months. They're paying back to December, so it's December, January, February. As of the 1st of March, they're going to start paying, so they're going to pay them 4 months back money. And there's no time limit, so it looks like it's cash for life.
So there's no ongoing need to update whether or not they're still renting or they're changing rentals or they've bought their own home, so it's just, here's $300 a month.
There's nothing in the application that he filled out stating that. All they wanted in the application is basically his bank information so they could deposit the money into his bank account. And there's no time limit, so it's like it's cash for life.
Strange set of circumstances, no strings attached.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's another way of the government throwing money at something to, like you said, to try to eliminate or decrease the number of people that are on the waiting list. But like you said, they got 2,200 people or 22,000 people on the list. Are they going to give everybody $300 a month?
Well, it's a fair question. And once again, I don't know how they pick the people who are being made these types of offers. I know they brought more and more units back online that were shuttered for renos or renovations, but we just have lost our way with housing, and that's not just the conversation in this province. The country has lost its way.
Country has lost its way. Yes, yeah.
100%. Ed, I appreciate the time. We'll see if we can get the Newfoundland Labrador Housing Corporation to give us some idea about how they're picking the people who are getting these offers. How many offers are planning to be made or have been made? I'd be curious to find that out now.
Yes, for sure.
I appreciate the time, sir.
Oh, thank you for the time.
Anytime, Ed. Stay in touch.
Take care. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah, let's see if we get housing on, Dave, because that's an interesting one. We can get updates regarding the number of units that were closed, the pace with which they're being reopened, the wait list, the rent subsidy offers. So that's some good stuff in there. Let's go to line number 6. Trina, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Doing grand. How about you?
Good, thanks. I wanted to call and have a conversation today about Pink Shirt Day.
Okay.
I know that schools are having I've got some text messages this morning from my kids' schools where they're having activities around Kindness Day. But, I think it's really important to have a conversation and just to ask that, maybe this evening as people are sitting around their dinner tables that they consider this as part of the conversation. We, as I know I'm a counselor here in the town of Torbay, and we've talked about this many times in the past. I've called about the work that I've done with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities around, bullying and harassment and conversations that we've had about it right across the country. And we've also talked about Lions Quest and, work that the Lions have been doing to try to get into the school systems around providing that support. And I know as a community leader, and a person, a mom, a human in the community, this is something that we deal with all the time. And I'm not calling in my capacity today as a counselor. I'm calling as an individual. But I really want to make sure that, today on Pink Shirt Day, that this is something that we are talking about on your show, that we're talking about in our schools, that we're talking about in our communities, and we're talking about in our homes with our families. And the other thing, Patty, if I could, I just wanted to share, there's a lot of resources that are out there. I know that I've heard in my own community people talking about, concerns about bullying and harassment. And I've only recently learned that the RNC has their community services department, and you can speak with them and talk to them about, having presentations in the schools and in communities and spaces. So I will be after that and looking at where to from there and what I can do with it. I know that the Red Cross has Beyond the Hurt as one of their programs, like we've talked about in the past. There's Lions Quest. And there's information I found this morning as I was Googling around, the Canadian Occupational Health and Safety information that they have online that's free. There's also, there's groups all over the place providing resources and support. So just was looking for a few minutes today to make sure that people are thinking about this, to have the conversation and talk about the importance of pausing today, making space and having this conversation.
Fair enough. The one area that I think is probably the most important, we can talk about it in the schools, we can wear pink shirts, we can have awareness campaigns and poster campaigns and essay writing and what have you, but unless families are willing to be honest with themselves about who their child is and how he or she behaves when the parents aren't looking, if we don't have the conversations at home, we're never going to get anywhere. Never, ever. Because, what has changed since I was a school-age child, if the principal or VP called home and said, Paddy was bad boy today, I was in trouble, period. Now the pendulum has swung the exact opposite of that. Is now, how dare you say that my son or daughter is being bad at school, right? So we just got to change our tune. Not every child is perfect. Some might have just days where it gets away from them and they do something to hurt emotionally or physically a fellow classmate. Some are at it all the time. But, we just have to be honest. And you cannot be encouraging and or shielding your child from being take into account if they are indeed disruptive in school, if they are lashing out physically in school. I mean, they don't, for starters, not only is it bad parenting, you're setting your child up. That child is going to have a difficult time thriving if and when he or she is ostracized by the rest of the school community because they're a nuisance and they're violent and they're mean. So if it doesn't start at home, we can wear pink shirts or rainbow shirts all day long every day. If it doesn't get dealt with at the kitchen table, we're just swimming upstream.
I absolutely agree, Patty, and that's the reason why I wanted to call today, because my ask and my hope is that when people are home this evening, or this afternoon or whenever they get the time, they sit down and have this conversation, with their kids, with their families, with their partners, with their friends. I mean, this is an important conversation, and it absolutely starts at home. And people will call me and say, what are you doing as a municipal councillor to address these issues? And oftentimes, it's part of the conversation around awareness and looking at yourself. And listen, I was a kid at one point. I'm a human being. We all make mistakes and we learn from them. And, I've been known to, and did actually our last public council meeting, put my hand up and said, I made a mistake, I own it. Let's move on from here. It's important to do that self-reflection, to think about what am I contributing in this space? What is happening here? What can I do? And I fully agree with you. I think that, the solution to addressing bullying and harassment is not wearing a pink shirt, but it's actually doing that self-reflection and understanding what role do I as a person, as a human, have in this community, in this space, to walk the talk, show people how to live with compassion and kindness, and make sure that we have space for inclusion in our communities. And I firmly believe, Patty, that hurt people. And so, if somebody is lashing at us or having a hard time, what is behind that? How do we help these children, these people, these families, and, get the right supports in place so we can have these conversations? And we've come a far way in opening safe spaces to have these conversations in years. But we've also now have the addition of online, abilities for people to reach out, connect, and for that harassment to continue in a way it never did before. So for me personally, this is a very important conversation. This is something that I will be speaking with my family and my friends and my community about today. And I just wanted to make sure that, we had a chance today, and for all of your listeners out there, hopefully they take that action item, they bring it home today, and not just today, many days, have the conversation about how do we do our part to make a better and safer community all across the board, and know that those resources are there and you can reach out. You can reach out as an individual if you're concerned about bullying and harassment or any of these things that you're in your space. You have the right and can dial the number, at the RNC, the 729-8000, and ask for help and support. So it's not just a school that has to drive it or just a community. There are people who can take action in responsible ways and make differences as well. So that's kind of what I was hoping to share. And thank you. I really appreciate your time today to talk about this.
I appreciate yours, Trina. Thanks for the call.
All right. Take care, Patty. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye. And I talk about the issue regarding chronically absent from school. Some 10% was the last number we saw in a report brought forward by the Child Youth Advocate. So you wonder how many of that 10% are not in school because of bullying. Or how many children are at school today, when they got up this morning, they were deathly afraid and absolutely did not want to go to school, but of course, mom or dad or the caregiver ensured they made their way to school. I'd be curious to know, because that's some of the things that Jackie Lake Kavanagh pointed out. We don't even know why people are absent. Maybe some schools do better jobs than others, but if we don't know why you're absent, then we can't do much about it. Whether it be transportation issue, whether it be a bullying issue, whether it be some issues regarding poverty in the home, whether it be domestic violence related matters, who knows? That's why it's not just a Department of Education issue, it's all of the aforementioned issues and the responsible ministers, to understand what their role is in dealing with that. Why do I think that's a big idea, a big deal? Because 75% who were chronically absent in grade 6 don't graduate high school. It's becoming more and more difficult to make a real life for yourself, meaningful, gainful employment without a high school education. So that's why I think it matters. Let's take a break. Appreciate the patience of both Sam and Janet. Sam wants to talk about municipal services and drinking water. Janet's here to talk about tax incentives. Don't go away. Back to the show. Let's go. Line number 4. Sam, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How you doing?
Doing okay. Thanks, you.
Good. It's a little wet out here today. We get some rain and we got some wind coming.
Pretty pleasant day here in town. Apparently going to be up to 10 degrees, maybe with a bit of rain. But anyway, there you go. Not bad for February 28th. What's on your mind, Sam?
Yes, the reason why I'm calling that we got bad water here in our community. I live in the community where I live a part of Shipco, but I'm not in the municipality local service district. I'm part of Piccadilly local service district, and it don't really make sense. And our water has been bad now quite a long time, and we got lead in the water, and you've seen the videos. The water is brown most of the time, and the water's we don't even know if it's safe to shower with or to wash or clothes with or bathe or something with, because it's nothing. Nobody wants to help us. I contact municipal affairs, I contact local service district representatives, I contact our MHA, Tony Wakeham, and nobody seems to be cares about it, or nobody's acting on anything that we brought a concern that we even put up a petition to separate from Piccadilly Local Service District to Minister Hague, and everybody that live in Abrams Cove and this part of Ship Cove signed it, and Minister Hague refused it and said, no, we're not going to let you join with Ship Cove. You can stay where you are. If not, we're going to join the whole communities, Piccadilly and Westby, together with Ship Cove. Regionalization, more or less. And we're not interested in regionalization. We want to join with Ship Cove because we're not getting the service we need. We got a welder who's over 50 years old, and nobody's helping us here with nobody. The water, what can we do?
So why isn't it just being tested? So is there not rules for local service districts? Because there is for municipalities. Incorporated
rules. There is rules. It's being tested, yes. But, there's we need, basically, with the well is over 50 years old, it needs to be a new well drilled. And we don't know what's going on with the monies that have been collected from us. The only thing, basically, the service we do get is garbage pickup, and that's not a garbage annual cleanup. It's just a regular garbage pickup. So, whatever is bigger than a microwave gets tossed into the country or something like that, like litter and all over the place. But clarinette, everything, we don't get really anything here, and we're trying to get help. I reached out to me and a few community members reached out to Tony Wakeham to have a meeting on this area, and we're still waiting for a date and a phone call back to have a meeting to deal with these issues. He's well aware of these issues, and so is the municipal affairs, and municipal affairs don't really give two hells about us, and so where we're left to. I mean, all the people needs help here, and you have a copy of the petition. I sent it to you, and the letter that we added and was stamped by a notary, and I mean, we even had elders in the community to sign that we were a part of this community for so many years. But I mean, we need to separate from Piccadilly and West because we are really a part of Ship Cove, and Abrams Cove wants to connect as well. And we could probably get better served a little better if we were part of a community that we're related to and it was at our border, rather than go in the opposite direction, right?
Okay, Sam, so there's concerns with whether it be lead or whatever you're concerned with, what the water might be like. But so if you say it's being tested, what are the results of the test? There's
lead traces in the tests. And we were told there's lead traces. There was a letter put up on our pump house by Piccadilly Local Service District and says that our water is not fit for human consumption. And those test results, I had a copy of it here. I don't know where it is, but I do have a copy of it somewhere. And it shows that we had lead into it and traces of different types of E. coli, 2 types of E. coli. So, but there was nothing. I mean, we get a test, but there's no results. Like I said, there's no results. I mean, they're well aware of it, and there's nothing being done.
So the purpose of the information you shared and the call this morning is that you know that it's been deemed unfit for human consumption. So it's where and what the next steps are, right?
Well, what we do now, we travel 35 kilometers to get water for drinking in bottles. As you can see, I send you pictures. That's what we do. Yep. And most of the peninsula out here, the water is not fit to drink anyway. And that's been going on for a number of years. And so anyway, but that's what we're doing. And we requested to get well drills and a new well drilled, and nobody cares. The local service district, I mean, they've been collecting money for years, and he says he has no money. Well, where's the money going? Who's monitored this here? Why don't we have public consultations of what's going on? There's nothing going on. I mean, I can show up a bunch of phony receipts or whatever, right? But I mean, there's nothing. We don't see anything here, and we're being neglected because we live on this part of the community, and we should be given a priority, equal rights as the rest of like Piccadilly or West Bay, right? I mean, we all pay, and we need water. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, I contacted people and I written letters, and so I got the support of the people. And also the local service district, the Ship Cove was willing to take us with open arms. But as our Minister Hagee says, we're not going to support it. So, and our water, I mean, we got no water here. We got no good drinking water. So there's no way that we can get any improvements to get it done. And there's no money, that's what they're saying, to get it done. So we're left on our own, basically. Drill your own well if you got a problem. That's basically what they're telling you. I mean, thousands of dollars.
Does anybody have any idea what it would cost to drill a new well to supply the entire community?
Well, for the drilled well, for probably about maybe doing 70 or 80 homes, probably you're looking at probably about, I don't know, I'm saying 30 to 50,000.
And so there's nobody who's at the helm of the LSD that can give you any accounting of how much money's been collected and how it's being spent? I mean, there's not an audited financial statement?
Nothing. Don't even see a financial statement. You don't see nothing. Zero. Right.
Wow.
We're just left in the dark there. I mean, you ask questions, you're considered a troublemaker, right? So
well, yeah, I wouldn't let anyone make me feel like a troublemaker for asking how my money's being spent. I wouldn't care what they thought.
I asked them, and they'll give you a speech. You just get a speech all the time. Well, it's this and that and all this stuff, right? Oh, it's spent here and it's spent there. Well, what's spent in our community? Well, we got your spare well, but yet the spare pump, and where's the spare pump? It's not here. Somewhere else in another community. The money was allotted out for here. It's not here. It's being allotted out somewhere else. So we're definitely getting nothing, zero support here from anywhere, from anybody. And we want Mr. Tony Wakeham to help us. He's a PC representative, and he's our MHA. We're asking for his help to get something done about our water.
Have you heard back from his office?
Yeah, I was to his office. I called, and we're still waiting because me and a few members want to go down and around people from the community here wants to go down and meet with him, and we're still waiting for a call.
Well, keep me in the loop. If anything changes, send along whatever you have, Sam. I haven't had a chance to look at everything you sent to me this morning because there was quite a bit, but I will.
Yes, I mean, it's You only could do so much, and you only could try so much. And I feel that myself and the people here in Abrams Cove and this part of Ship Cove is being ignored by the local service district of Piccadilly and by our MHA, our government. And Minister Hagee, as you're aware, the letter I sent to you, he's do not support ours to join with Ship Cove. So he basically, no, you stay as it is. Do what you are doing already. So he thinks it's okay the way things are already, unless you're going to join all the communities. And we don't want to do that. We want to join with another community. And the other people that's in the other area, Piccadilly and Westby, has nothing to do with that petition because they don't live here. They live out there.
Got it. I'll follow up with the Minister's office. I'll read the information that you sent me, Sam, and I appreciate the time. Let me know if you make any headway.
You bet. Thank you very much. You have yourself a good day, Paddy.
You too, Sam. Take care.
Stay safe. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Let's get another one before we get to the break. Line number 8. Janet, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Top shelf. You?
I swore I wasn't going to ask you how you are, because I know. But I did it anyway.
No
I
worries.
can't help it. And, I got to say, it seems an odd thing that I would be calling about tax incentives. I mean, it's such a boring thing until you really think about the long-term implications. I heard the question of the day and called and responded to it. And, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, Patty, but it's not really you that I want to speak with. I want to speak with everyone else that's listening at the moment, if that's all right.
I'm not exactly sure what that means, but go ahead.
Okay, what I want to say is, listen, without advertising, we are at risk of losing not just the show you're listening to, but we're at risk of losing AM radio, because they depend on the revenue from advertising to stay on the air. And I think that I'm personally almost 60 years old, so I've lived a long time. And my faith has been shaken in a lot of institutions within the last few years. You think about homelessness and the state of medical care, the glacial pace of the legal system. There's just so many problems. And without VOCM, I don't think we'd hear a lot about it. The other thing is, I don't believe that as residents, we'd have the opportunity to call shows like this and express ourselves and have a place to be heard. We have a government that seems so complacent, so deaf and blind to what's really happening on the ground. And I really do value the opportunity that VOCM gives us all to express our fears or our outrage or our joy. And I honestly believe if we got up in the morning and turned radio and Jerry Lynn and Ben and all the Bryans and Patty and Linda and Claudette, you guys weren't there, I believe they would all be sadly missed. So I really want to issue a challenge to those of you that are still tolerant enough to keep listening to me. And that challenge is, call your MHA. Tell them that you absolutely support these tax incentives. Let's keep AM radio protected. We rely on you. And if we can help do this, we're only helping ourselves. And I guess that's all I wanted to say, Patty.
I appreciate the time. I'll just very quickly say, all of this type of conversation is way above my pay grade when it comes to Stingray and other media companies talk about tax incentives. I think one of the important things that they make in their plea is for X percentage of government spending for advertising to be done in small market stuff, which it just makes sense to me. Look, the whole concept of the federal government, putting the hundreds of millions of dollars into media has kind of backfired, because now everything is apparently bought and paid for, which is kind of ridiculous and pathetic. It's a bit of a lazy way to talk about how important small market media is, because we've got, if you want a further conglomeration of media, we're asking for all the wrong things, in my personal opinion. I mean, we've got huge American money invested in some of the major media outlets here in this country. We know the amount of money that flows, for instance, to the public broadcaster, but small market media, if that goes away, the stories that you think are important to you in your day-to-day lives, what's happening happening in the court, what's happening at municipal council, what's happening with local issues, all of a sudden they'll be impossible to find. So I get why people think if your business model doesn't work based on standing on your own 2 feet, away you go. But that's, again, just a little bit too lazy. Some things are important. The shoreline is important. It's an important little newspaper. I picked it up the other day at Sobeys and read it. Excellent quality stuff talking about local issues. If stations like this go away, there's a lot of things that you're told about that are going to be harder and harder to find.
Let's face it. There's a lot of institutions that we just take advantage of. We just assume they're always going to be there. And I think we've all had our faith shaken in a great deal of those. And I really honestly believe that small market media, without it, we're not hearing what's relevant to us. You know what I mean? We're hearing about what's happening globally, which is fantastic and important, but I really believe that we would miss turning on the dial and hearing what's happening here. I think we'd be lost without it. And it's a reciprocal relationship. We're learning from you, and we're also, like I said, having the opportunity to be heard ourselves in a place where, we rarely get to these days. So I'm not a business person. I don't know anything about taxes, but I do recognize and value AM radio for what it is, and if there's anything that I can do at all to, preserve it, then I'm going to do it. And if it's as simple as making a phone call, then everyone that's listening here this morning should just do that. That's my challenge. It's just a phone call to keep the lines open because they go both ways.
That's right. It's reciprocal. I think that's the proper word. I appreciate your time, and thanks for doing this morning, Janet.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you guys for doing what you do.
Happy to do it.
Come on, everybody. Call your MHA. Let's keep it going.
Thanks for this.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And again, the whole business model conversation, sometimes a bit oversimplified. The fact of the matter is, the competition with the new advent of media and how it works and how it's financed or funded has just changed dramatically. And I think companies like this have tried to change with the times and make sure that we can be as self-reliant entity. And of course, I'm not in those meetings. I have no idea how those conversations look. But if you're talking about the amount of advertising revenue that goes to the big tech giants, I mean, it's insurmountable. How can you compete? Right? In realistic terms. We're lucky enough to have a nice stable of faithful advertisers here. And this station, as far as I know, it's our sole source of revenue. That's as far as I know, anyway. Let's take a break. When we come back, the Mayor of Trapassi is reading a panel. She's in the queue. The breakwater, gone again. Amy Richards wants to talk about medically fragile children. And Cynthia with coverage. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 2. Amy, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Pretty good, thanks.
Okay.
So I'm calling about a report that I released last Friday, and I just wanted to provide some of the information that's in it. So the report was released to government. I sent it to media and released it on social media and that as well. And it's about the experiences that parents of medically fragile children in this province have been having with the Special Child Welfare Program. So the Special Child Welfare Program is the government program where they can access respite services and medical care. So for parents of medically fragile children, this is where they get most of their government support. And I wanted to make sure I lay out exactly what I mean by medically fragile, because there's quite a spectrum when it comes to disabilities. And the parents that I spoke with about this report, and their information is contained in it, their children are severely disabled. Most of these children are not going to make it to adulthood. They have very, very complex needs. Most of them are nonverbal. They cannot sit, stand, eat, talk. It's very, very severe for these children and for their families. I was conducting research on these parents for my master's work at university, which is a little bit of a different project. But when I was interviewing parents, one of the things that I would ask them, because I really wanted to understand their situation through their eyes. So one of the things that I would ask them was, tell me the worst thing about parenting your child. And a lot of the parents told me the worst thing about having to deal with all the things that they have to deal with as parents of these children is trying to access support from the government. And that was pretty mind-blowing for me. I figured it was going to be, having to deal with mortality or something like that. But no, it was trying to get support from the government. So when I heard that, I said, this needs to be written up into a report for government. They need to understand how these parents feel with accessing support through this program. And I released it last week because I learned that they are in the process of making changes to the program right now. And one of the things that they're doing is they're bringing in an assessment tool that will be how they determine respite care support services for families.
I mean, there's, in Bradley Moss's report, which was called By a Thread, if I remember correctly, one family reported paying $35,000 a year for respite care. There was another story I remember reading from Mr. Moss where a social worker told the parents to get divorced so they can qualify for social assistance. So there were some 12 recommendations that came from his report. So how does the research you've done and the report you've compiled add to or differ from Mr. Moss's, who's the citizens representative, his report?
I think it adds some additional voices, some deeper sort of understanding that is missing from the Office of the Citizens Representative report. I think it piggybacks a lot of their recommendations very, very well as well. And I think it also adds something new, and that is the current lack of understanding that SCWA has about these parents' experiences. And that's because so much of what's being done right now is sort of being done under the radar. So even if, even them going by the information that they have in their system, they don't have an accurate record of what's going on to make changes to the system right now. And a really good example of that is overnight respite care. So SCWA will not provide overnight respite care for medically fragile children, regardless of what they may need overnight. But social workers will, like SCWA social workers, they will say, I'll give you the number of hours. I'm just not going to ask you what time of day they're being used. So they're making changes to the system, thinking, for example, no children have overnight respite care, but they do, just off the record. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do have, I'm pretty sure I have your report in my email inbox, and I will have a look at it. As I said, I was away for 4 days, so I really am behind in the email work. I'm going to have to clean some of that up. So I'll find yours and add it to my reading like I have when I did read By a Thread from Mr. Moss, and I know you were involved as both a parent and a researcher in that project as well. So I will add both of them together. There were some interesting recommendations regarding caregiving, respite care and otherwise. Talking about, I believe the words he was using is to caregiver recognition or something, and codify what it means for those who look after their loved ones. And so, that would only be complementary to overnight respite care and, qualifications for one pot of money or another, because, I mean, the burden emotionally, mentally, financially is very real. If you haven't read his report, and he also goes on to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that he's talked about this problem becoming even, I don't know if problem's the right word. Yeah, I guess it is. It's going to be more and more families in this predicament within the next 10 years. The programs are falling short. People don't understand the information about what is actually available out there. And you add that financial burden to what must be devastating emotionally and mentally. I really don't know how you and others have been able to find your way through it, but it's extraordinary stuff. So,
and physically.
Would you like me to share your report with anybody, including some folks who have written me with very similar family concerns?
Absolutely. You have full permission to share that. I also sent out some additional infographics the day after I sent the report that highlights, a quick overview of the findings, the recommendations, some things that parents said. So, yeah, I think it's
Amy,
a great addition.
If someone wants to connect with you, would you like to share your email address or something live over the air?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
So my email is VAD, like zebra, 99 AFR, as in Amy Florence Richards, at mun.ca, MUN.
And, of course, I have that address available too if you didn't have a chance to jot it down. If you want to send me an email, I will send along what I have on behalf of Amy. I really appreciate you making time this morning, Amy.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you making time for me as well.
Dave Williams wants me to put you on hold. I think the newsroom might want some additional information, so I'll put you on hold. You'll speak with David. Okay, let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number one. Say good morning to the Mayor of Trapassi. That's Rita Pennell. Mayor Pennell, you're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Welcome back to the show.
I just wanted to talk to you about the breakwater.
Yep.
On the 15th, we got the word again about where they put up the new sticks and everything. They're all gone, same as it happened in 2021. We waited for 2 years to get it done, and now it's gone again. And the road now, where the water line goes to like 25 homes on the lower coast, is open to the ocean. And that's our biggest problem right now, is saving our water line.
And, I mean, we're not talking about just a couple of people being impacted. I mean, that lower area, I can't remember exactly what you guys call it, but, I mean, there's some 30 families down there.
Yeah.
Is the lower coast, is that what you call it?
Yes, the lower coast.
Yeah, okay.
There's 25 homes down there. And, we had the engineers here on the 16th, the government engineers, and they took our trouble back to the higher ups, they said. And we called them yesterday, and they still had nothing for us. So it's hard to know what to be doing, right?
Well, you didn't get jig time out of that $900,000 worth of breakwater, and something's got to be done. So, there's only a certain amount of area to even consider putting a breakwater up. This is going to be, before long, Mayor Pennell, this is going to be a matter of those homes being destroyed and or having to reroute the road itself, because I've been there. I know how narrow we're talking about. So I don't know where the answer lies, because if they can come up with some sort of berm or breakwater that's going to stand up to the tests of the ocean, we'll see. But boy, oh boy, the last try was, futile.
Well, the engineers didn't listen to us. We told them what needed to be done, and for another 300,000 or 400,000, we'd say, they could have done the job right. But they put those 12-foot sticks down in about, we'd say, clay and beach rocks, about 2 feet. And I mean, the contractor followed the scope work. The work was done as the engineers put it there, but the engineers didn't listen to the people of Trapassi.
Yeah. Sometimes, someone might come to town and they've got the university degree and the label as an engineer, and we absolutely need their input. Of course we do. But folks who have seen the changes over the years, whether it be where the high water mark is today versus where it was in 1960, whether it be the frequency and the severity of the storms and what it's meant for the destruction of that breakwater, some of the on-the-ground information is obviously potentially going to be helpful to even the most highly educated engineer.
Well, this is it. And we tried to explain to them about the cribbing and everything, and the arm of rock, stone, and that you need that there on the ocean side to break the ocean before it hits the fence.
Sure.
But they didn't listen to us.
Well, so what next? I mean, obviously we're going to have to start talking about money. Am I right in saying that the town itself paid the HST on the last bill, so which is about $120,000?
Yes, about 120,000.
And the 900,000 itself came directly from the federal government's emergency fund?
Yes, 929,000.
Okay, so do you have? Go ahead.
I mean, if you're going to spend 900, you can say almost $1 million. Why wouldn't you spend another 300 or 400 to do the job right?
That's a good question.
Yes, it is a good question. It's a question we've been asking, but nobody. The engineers had their mind just to say what they were going to do, and we had talked with the fishermen and talked with the people that lived down there, and I grew up over in that area myself, next to the breakwater, we'd say, and we knew what could happen, and we explained to them, and all they said, if it goes again, we'll put it back. So $1 million meant nothing to them.
Yeah, it must be nice. But it's like everything else, right? You get what you pay for. So you buy an expensive handmade couch versus the one that's coming up with a Bristol board. Well, what do you think is going to last longer? What's value for money? So unless we put it back right, even if it costs $2 million, that's better than putting it back 5 times for $5 million.
Now, what we're afraid of, still on warranty. I would think it's still on warranty, and because there's always a warranty period. So are they going to come back and do another contract for that and put it back the same way as they had it there before? It's just it's not they have no common sense.
Well, if they put it back the same way in the same spot, then it's just a matter of months before it's knocked down again.
Yeah, that's right.
100%. So, paint the picture for the folks who are listening this morning about the 25 homes that are there and what type of risk is involved, because we see the extent of the storms and some of the storms that have made their way to your shores, whether it be, I can't remember what they're all named. It was Larry made its way there, Fiona, Earl. So, paint a picture about what kind of peril some of these homes might be in.
Well, the worst thing of all right now, the road is open to the ocean, and under that road is where our water line goes to those 25 homes. So, that's really a concern, and plus the safety of the residents down there. I wouldn't want to live down there because I'd be afraid every storm comes or something happens.
Of course. And we see what's going on here, and it's very, very real. There's money's been put forward by federal governments, provincial governments, to really map out things like floodplains, to measure some of the coastal erosion, what that means for how we build and where we build. So these are very real issues. What is your Member of Parliament saying? Because this was emergency funding from the feds last time, so that would be Ken MacDonald. What is Mr. MacDonald saying?
Well, I called him. We sent him an email first, and then we called him. And he called back, and he was going to get back to us, and I didn't hear from him since. And we were talking with Loyola several times, Loyola O'Driscoll, and he's just waiting to see what they're going to do, really.
Well, it's very likely going to have to be federal monies again, and there's no real rationale as to how and why the federal government would not be involved, because we are talking about an emergency, and the label on the fund is pretty clear. It's emergency funding.
But, really, the federal government should own that down there, not the town, because they passed it over to the provincial government back probably the 70s, and then they passed it over to the town. There's 3 federal sites on the other side of that road. We had the Battery, we have Powell's Head, and we have Walton's Point Light for the boat. So there's 3 federal sites on the other side of that breakwater.
Fair enough, and I don't know how that gets factored in, but it's certainly part of the argument, I would suggest.
Yes, yeah, it is a part.
I appreciate the time, Mayor Pennell. Anything else this morning?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Stay in touch.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye. That's Rita Pennell. She's the Mayor of Trapassi. Let's take a break. Appreciate the patience. Cynthia, she wants to talk about cell service in one part of the province. We're going to talk about MUN, talk about home care, whatever you want to talk about right after the newscast. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Cynthia, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I have a problem that I hope you can help me with. Is about my cell phone service.
Okay.
I need some answers, and I'm not getting them. I'm being cut off the network all the time. I was with one provider, and I was losing my service. Like, even when there was service, it was going on SOS and stuff like that. And I'm in a location where I can't get access to go to see someone about it because, we live in a rural area and you have to go to Cornerbrook or Stephenville to talk to someone, or you get a call center. So anyway, I'm losing service, and I called Apple to see what was going on because I have an iPhone, and they told me it was my carrier.
Yeah, it would be your carrier. So where are you?
Yep. I'm in Doyle's, Cadbury Valley, but I'm purposely being cut off on the network. And I went into Stephenville and got them to call, and they told me that there was another line on my account. And I said, well, how can that be? Because I said, I'm the only one on this account. And there was an eSIM put on my phone. I had to go in and get that straightened out. And now I've come to find out that my husband has the same problem with his phone. It's like there's another SIM card attached to this number, and that's why we're losing service. And when I asked, who was on the call, they told me they couldn't tell me, but it was from another provider on my cell phone account.
So let me get this straight. There's two lines on your account from two different providers.
That's what was told to me, yes.
I don't know how that works. That's pretty strange. So
it is strange. It's not even right. And I think that's the reason why I'm losing my service. And it got to come from the cell phone provider because I don't have access to put another line on my account or eSIM.
So
that's done by the provider.
Can't they fundamentally just remove it? I mean, if you're a provider and you have not asked for and or authorized or want to pay for a second line, can't your current carrier just say, okay, we'll deal with that?
Well, all I'm getting is when I call, and I don't even think I'm getting the right people sometimes. I think my calls are rerouted because it's kind of creepy if there's another line, a SIM card attached to my phone.
Why not?
They would have all my information.
Why not just get a new SIM card?
I did get a new SIM card, but when I went in, I even changed providers, and the provider said to me, now, if there's another line on that account, I have to say. And I said, well, why would there be another line on my account? I'm the only one on that account. So why even ask me that, I don't know.
I have no idea. It's a strange circumstance. I don't think I've ever heard this particular one before.
No. And I went to the police. They told me I had to call. I have all the information. I'm wondering, I'm out in my car now talking to you, Patty. I had to leave my house and go a 10-minute drive just to make sure I didn't get cut off. Because this morning when I tried to use my phone to call Openline, I had SOS for about 10 minutes. And 4 dots. My service was just completely cut off. So that tells me that line is still being used on my account.
I suppose. I don't know if that's why you find yourself without access to 3G or whatever it is in the Cadbury Valley, but there's certainly something completely bizarre. And I can't for the life of me understand why your provider simply can't remove something that's not part of your package from your cell phone.
It seems like when I call, they remove it, but then it gets put back on.
Do you know by who? Is it by your former provider?
It's got to be somebody from the company. It's got to be the carrier or somebody has gone in and accessed my account with pretending to be me. That's the only two things I can figure out.
Yeah, and with the verification the way it is, you would think that would be difficult to do, even though nothing's impossible now when we talk about people who are trying to fool around with our tech and or our telecommunications products. So I don't really know where to point you. I do know someone in that industry, and he generally listens to the show, as a matter of fact. So if he's listening this morning, and if you want to give me some idea of what you think might be happening and some solutions, if he calls, or pardon me, if he texts me, I'll ask him to give you a shout. How's that?
Okay, you have my number, right?
Yeah, we got your number.
Okay, because I'll tell you one thing. I went and had to go to Port aux Basques one day to make a call to my provider, and when I did, I got Arkansas from the States, and it was a lady that told me that they had my profile set up wrong, but why I got the States when there's Canada, it seems like to me there's a SIM card that shouldn't be attached to my account from another country. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing that there's something going on with my account.
That's probably just a call center issue versus a provider from the United States, because, of course, they're not in Canada as a United States-based entity. But if my buddy, hopefully he's listening. If not, I'll drop him a text during the news and see if he can't give us some idea. I'll explain to him as best I can if he's not listening to the show right now, and we'll see what we can do from there.
I think what they're doing is, I think what's being done is they're using they got another SIM card attached to this profile, and it's being put in a hotspot, and they're using my Wi-Fi. Like I can't even get Wi-Fi calling, even if I'm in an area that's at home. It's not really good service. I get 1 bar of LTE, and sometimes I'll put her on Wi-Fi calling. But if I get cut off from the network, I got nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Let me see what I can find out.
Okay, Patty, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Cynthia.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, does anyone? I don't think I've ever heard of that particular issue. Well, maybe, I mean, Dave's saying in my ear that sounds like she's been hacked, and that could very well be the case. But anyway, we'll see if we can figure out something on her behalf. And of course, it was last summer, if I remember correctly, that the province put out an RFP regarding proposals to expand cellular service to the places that have the gaps or not serviced, period. I don't know whatever became of that. So communities were supposed to be involved too. They had a deadline to apply for some of the eventual service expansion. That deadline was somewhere in September. Middle September somewhere. So if anyone actually knows what became of that, that would be a helpful piece of info, because we know the number of dead spots here. And there was one community, I think it was probably mainland, as a matter of fact, one of the communities that's in the conversation regarding World Energy, GH2. They fundraised, crowdsourced some 80 grand to bring a cell tower to their community. Not necessarily what we can and need to be doing. The providers, the carriers, they're charging us pretty big bucks. And for folks who have, regardless of your provider, to not get the service is pretty pathetic stuff. Let's take a break. When we come back, the Chains Quest board chair is Chris Lacey. We know that snowmobile endurance race is coming up next month. There's some comments or questions being asked about the conditions. They say that the vast majority of it is passable, maybe not ideal. We'll get an up-to-date report from the chair, Chris Lacey, right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Say good morning to the board chair at Cairns Quest. That's Chris Lacey. Good morning, Chris. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Barry. How's it going?
Doing okay. You?
Doing pretty good.
Excited, and I suppose somewhat stressed out trying to get organised for this year's edition. We all remember what happened last year. A couple of stalls, and then eventually got called off after a team went through the ice into the open water. I've had some people in the area send me some pictures about what they think are maybe some dicey or dodgy sections of the race, but the headline on your news release is Cairns Quest 2024, ready to race. What's the status?
That's the status. We're ready to race. We've contacted all the teams, all the local GSARs and local contacts, trappers, and the likes to be on the land. And while we'll definitely say the conditions are not favorable for family rides and stuff, for the world's toughest snowmobile endurance race, it's definitely a go.
So when people are telling me that, some of the routes are passable but not ideal, paint me a picture of what not ideal looks like. Are we talking about some fragile ice conditions or just mucky snow, or what are people actually referring to?
If I was to give you what I'm giving an indication of, it's the lack of snow. So the ice, inland ice, and ice conditions are actually really good. We have a lot of ice, inches of feet, and there's very little to no inland or bay ice that we're concerned about. It's the outer edge of the sea ice that we would be concerned about. But the not passable is the boulders and the big barren lands with very little to no snow on it. So like the stumps and the rocks that are normally covered by the snow are not covered this year. So it's a lot more less forgiving when it comes to what the terrain you're riding over is. So there's definitely going to be some damage done to your sleds and your machines and stuff. So that's what people are saying when it's not favorable. But it's definitely passable because you can drive across it. You can go across it. Everything is there is manageable, but it's definitely from a speed kind of things and a race kind of things is going to slow things down. So that's why it's not favorable.
What does that mean to the teams and, for instance, safety concerns? Because, beating up your machine is one thing, but coming up solid on a stump and maybe getting hurt will bring in the conversation regarding insurance and liability. So how do you and your group address that?
Well, in all the insurance companies that we have event insurance and stuff, but racers sign a waiver of liability, so they understand what they're getting into and how they're being managed and the risks there. They're recommended to have their own personal insurance when they sign up for the race to cover them in the event of an accident or incident. So we have insurance for ourselves for events, and we have liabilities, and we get them to sign the waiver, and they understand the risks that's coming too. But with the conditions that you're going to have, the speeds are going to be a lot slower. So the risk of a major incident is probably this year it's probably less than before. So because in previous races when you had feet of snow, you'd be going a lot faster, and if you hit a rock doing 100 kilometers an hour versus 20 kilometers an hour, the 100-kilometer-hour is going to really hurt you, and you're going to get bumped up and bruised doing 20, but you could get significantly injured doing 100. So it's stuff that's going to do that. But when it comes to that, we're our insurance companies and waivers and the racers understand what they're getting signed up for.
So you got 35 teams, and there's I think it's 3,500 kilometers of race. Do the teams get real detailed information about the type of terrain that they're about to experience in whatever stage, or do they get an opportunity to get a flyover or some drone footage or something? Because it's one thing to say they know what they're getting themselves into, but that's theoretical versus what they can actually see prior to putting their sled down.
So that information is available to people who want to go look at it. I mean, there's different ways of getting that stuff, internet stuff, reaching out to locals, doing some scouting on your own and stuff. Cane's Quest doesn't offer that stuff because we try not to get too involved in how the racers get from point A to point B. We want you to go to point A to point B, and the whole point of the race is for you to navigate your own way and use your navigational skills and technology and your ability to be in the extreme sports business and take that as what it is. So that's a part of the race, is either that unknown or that thrill, like that's thrill-seeking stuff that people strive for, those types of racers, those types of professionals. But there is ways that they want that information. It's out there. They can get it, just for sure.
So, I mean, it's a pretty enticing cash prize, too, for the winner, some $50,000. When it comes to money, have you folks been measuring the economic impact of bringing Cane's Quest to Labrador?
Yeah, so part of our development, when we get money from ACOA and NL governments and stuff and different municipalities and stuff like that, it is an economic report that we have to do. We boast a lot on tourism. I mean, every hotel from Labrador City down to Lansinclair and up to Nain is booked solid for a week straight, if not longer. And weeks going into the race, everything is booked from people doing scouting trips and different people going out and looking at different parts of the land. And then after the spin-off of, we got people, we're over 1 million followers on social media from all across the world, international. And the different things that have brought and the friendships that's been made, the spin-offs are twofold. And we do measure that and stuff. I guess it's hard to put a solid number on it, but we do our best to give our estimates and our proposals when we put them forward.
How many different countries represented in the 35 teams?
It's just Canada and the U.S. right now, this one. But in the European countries, Team Finland is showing interest in coming back again. We haven't had much say in them. We do know this race was too soon for them from when they were in the 23, but they have shown interest in coming back in 26.
Because I believe it was the team from Finland that went through the ice last year, wasn't it?
That's correct, yeah. They're the ones that went into the open water there in the bay.
Chris, I appreciate the time. Good luck to everyone who's volunteering, whether it be at the 15 mandatory checkpoints or whatever roles that volunteers playing to you and your board. Anything else you'd like to say this morning?
Just thanking all them volunteers you just mentioned, because without those people, this race wouldn't be able to happen. The board and staff are very appreciative for everybody and how Labrador comes together and how everybody in this province comes together and helps us out. So it's just a great pleasure to be part of this event, and we want to thank everybody for helping out. And
it begins on March the 3rd at Tanya Lake, so hopefully it's a safe and fun event for all involved. Thanks for making time this morning, Chris.
All right, thanks, Pat. Have a good one.
You too, man. Bye-bye. Chris Lacey is the chair of the board of Cane's Quest. Let's go to line number 6. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
Morning. Hi. We spoke a couple of years ago about something. Patty, the reason why I'm calling, I'm a visually impaired person. I have some illness against me right now. And my home supports, they want me to pay money that I can't afford. And I've had home support since my partner died in March of 2022. And I went everywhere I could go, and I had a friend try to help me out. And they're saying that's the government's policy. When you go from 64 to 65, they can't help you. But I'm an ill person, and right now I have illness against me. Why? I mean, I'm not supposed to cook over a stove or anything like that. I do a lot of my house cleaning and that. But I can do some things on the stove, but I got to watch it because I have other illness against me.
So the difference between 64 and 65 is then all of a sudden your responsibility of the federal government?
Well, I suppose, Patty, that's what it's all about, boy, because, excuse me, is like, the person, when I applied for it, after when my partner passed, well, bango, she said, okay, you're eligible, and, I got sight, thanks for the God, but my parents never did want me to cook over a stove, and I didn't like stoves and different things like that. But I can't do it. Now, I went to a lot of people in government and even his boss. All they're saying, that's the policy. Go to the premier. Well, I'm just thinking, should a bunch of us get together and protest on Confederation Building steps when the snow is all gone?
So, just so I'm 100% clear, and I think I might know who you are, and I think I might have some information in my email inbox from you.
No, I'm not
I'm a
computer person, but we spoke when you came to my house many years ago when you worked where, and you brought out some shirts. This person, you gave her some hockey shirts with signed by a person, teams and that.
Where was I working then?
Well, you're not allowed to mention on the air, are you?
Sure, it was my job.
Oh, you're still on the air at Rogers, remember?
Okay, I was on Out of the Fog. And the jerseys were from like the Ice Caps or something?
I can't remember. I got them upstairs.
Okay, well, I did a few deliveries like that over the years, so hopefully you enjoyed the jerseys.
Oh, yeah, she loved your jerseys.
Great, that's good stuff, good update. So what specifically did you have that you've lost? I just want to make sure I have a firm understanding of what we're talking about.
I just don't have, as of Thursday this week, I don't really have any home care supports. And I need it because I've got illness against me right now. That's like, I know about broadcasting, but, right now I'm in a catheter. I can't do certain things. I worked half my life. I DJ'd for 30 years and had a guy bring it up to me that if I could do all this stuff, then, I'm not doing his services. The way he talks about it. And then he says, we'll blame it on the premier. And I had a good friend who tried everything, and he said to me, bango. But if you want to meet with me sometime, I'm willing to talk to you again about, And the other thing I think, what I'm talking, the other girl who works at your station, I've talked to her about something that's on the go that I got dealing with, something, and she never did get back to me.
Okay.
She's a busy person. You know what I'm talking about?
I think so. So, there's some of the support organizations out there. I mean, for instance, have you tried to get some advice or support from like the CNIB or?
CNIB did everything they could for me. I don't know what's out there. They don't have home care supports.
No, they don't. But I just thought, they know the landscape. They might be able to help. Maybe someone like in the offices at Seniors NL who would be dealing with very similar issues all the time. They are a really helpful organization. So maybe it's worth a call to them.
Well, I've called Seniors. Now, the man who did help me and my partner, he don't do this stuff no more. And this is where I'm really stuck. And I could talk to you off here and give you some names, but, I don't want to go. I thought you're not allowed to. You're not supposed to. That's why I'm very worried when I'm on here,
Yeah, and I'm catching up from a couple of lost days, and I don't even know if I've got 2 minutes to eat a bite of lunch here today. But
okay.
I'd be willing to follow up off air in the next few days, when and if I have some time, if that works.
Okay, well, I mean, I know you got to eat, boy.
Yeah,
you got to do them two things.
I should probably eat a little bit less or eat a little bit healthier, one or the other. Let's see what we can figure out here. I've got your number.
Right. And do you want me to give you my? Can I give my cell number to off here when I got to go out and pay my bills, keep the wolf away from the door.
Well, I'll put you on hold. Give it to Dave.
Give it to Dave.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll talk.
I appreciate the time. Good luck.
Thanks, Petty.
Okay.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Already on hold. Dave, you can grab your cell phone number for me. Break for the news. When we come back, water, sewer, the recreational food, fishery, Memorial University, and whatever we have time for after that. Don't go away.
Every Saturday is perfect for a night at the cabin. The Cabin Party with Brian O'Connell. Saturday night starting at 7 p.m. on VOCM.
Welcome back to the program. Okay, let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the independent member for Mount Pearl Southlands. That's Paul Lane. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you this morning?
Doing okay. How about you?
I'm not doing too bad, sir. Paddy, I wanted to talk about Mon this morning, but before I do, I just want to say that I was at the rally yesterday at the Confederation Building. I totally agree with the Nurses Union, with NAPE, that the Auditor General needs to be brought in to look at this, very troubling contract, to say the least. So I did write the Auditor General this morning myself and just added my voice to it, and just to say that I supported the call to have her do an investigation of the travel nurses. So just wanted to put that out there before I got to my subject.
Yeah, I think it's sort of interesting, some of the comments from Minister Osborne. In calling in the comptroller, which I think is a good first step, to be honest with you, because that person is perfectly positioned inside the workings of government to deal with issues like procurement. Mm-hmm. So, but the minister says that is a first step. So that kind of leads me to believe that the minister is also considering asking the Auditor General to have a look here. What do you think?
I hope he is, and to be honest with you, based on whatever, because there's lots of, I've heard lots of troubling stories, I'm sure have you, that would lead one to believe that maybe the RCMP needs to have a look at it. But we'll see what comes of this. I personally would like to see the Auditor General and to have that independent review, and then depending what that office might uncover, if there is a need to bring in the other authorities to look at it, well, then that's what we need to do. But there's no doubt that the amount of money we're talking about here, in this contract that's getting paid out is just absolutely ridiculous. I know the minister said that it was a necessary evil at the time, and I don't doubt that. I mean, if you were faced with a situation of we're going to shut down emergencies or we have to find nurses somewhere, and this was the only option presented, I guess I can see where it could happen, but it certainly needs to end sooner rather than later, in my view.
Yeah, well, like most things, if it's of a necessity, fair enough. Yep. But it's also required, I would think, to understand timelines and off-ramps and how we're going to try to reduce our reliance on the travel nurses. Yep. But I think some things are getting conflated into the one pot, like, for instance, on the meal payments. Like, I also heard a story this morning where they paid for the air transportation for a pet. I mean, what? On top of that, things like meals, $1.6 million. That to me seems more like a concern between the travel agency nurses and the agency itself. Because if in the contract it says that the government will pay Canadian Health Labs for meals and receipts that are submitted, so it sounds like the company is quote unquote ripping off the nurses as opposed to that's a government concern. Because if it's in the contract, it's in the contract. That would be, not necessarily an AG related matter. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked too far with travel nurses, but it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. But anyway, I just wanted to speak about Mon, and I just want to say right off the get-go, look, I have the utmost pride and respect for Mon as an institution. We've seen graduates from Memorial University take on leaderships all over the globe with Memorial University education and so on, and there's great instructors and staff there, and we should be very proud of that institution. So part of me, feels a little bit, I suppose, sad in having to bring these issues up. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about publicly funded institutions, we have to raise issues. I think it's in all of our best interests, and it's certainly part of my role as an MHA. People may recall a young man by the name of Matt Barter, and he was the young man. He's a student at Mon, and he does some investigative journalism, if you will, at the university, and writes in the local paper there. And he contacted me, I guess, a couple of months back about the fact that he had put in an access to information request to find out what bonuses and I believe vehicle allowances that were being paid out for executive bonuses and vehicle allowances for it was Genesis Center, Secor, and the Center for Fisheries and Innovations, I believe it was. And he was denied that information by the university. Basically, they had indicated that those three entities had been incorporated by the university, and somehow because of that, they didn't have to release this information. Now, this obviously raised a red flag for him. It raised a red flag for me. I thought it was absolute nonsense, and I suggested to him that he should file a complaint with the Privacy Commissioner, which he did. And Mr. Harvey, of course, came out with his decision indicating that, yes, indeed, they should release this information. These are all entities of the university, and you can't just simply incorporate parts of MON or whatever and as a way of shielding information. Anyway, apparently now I've been advised that the university intends to fight this through the court, the Privacy Commissioner's decision, which they do have a right to do. Now, obviously, when we look at the backdrop of what happened with the Auditor General, the report that came out, the scathing report that came out, all the issues that happened in the former, president's office under her control, but not just under her control, under the control of many others, and issues showing that, basically not having proper management controls in place, not even an organizational chart to understand who's responsible for what at university and so on. As I said, very disturbing. Now to find out that we have these entities within university that were for some reason incorporated, and now, we want to find out simple information as to corporate bonuses, which I didn't even think there would be such a thing as executive bonuses, to be honest with you, at the university, but apparently so. At these entities, we can't find out. Now they're going to fight the Privacy Commissioner in court. So, two things. First of all, I would like for the Minister of Education, if she could, to step in and say to them, come on, boys, release this information. This is crazy. If that's not going to happen and they're going to fight it, hopefully they lose and they have to release it. And in the off chance that the Privacy Commissioner, is wrong and doesn't have the ability to compel them to show this information, then if legislative change is required in the House Assembly to prevent this from happening, then that's what needs to happen, because while this may be MON, we could be talking about any government agency, board and commission in terms of a precedent that would be set that if there's any information you wanted shielded, all you got to do is create some entity or division within yourself, incorporate it, and then you can hide all the information. And that's in nobody's best interest. So I hope that I hope the court agrees with Mr. Harvey, and if not, like I say, we need the legislation changed, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I would imagine when something like, say, Genesis or Secor is incorporated, then, of course, any negotiation with bonuses for executives would be authorized by their boards. That doesn't mean they should be able to shield that information from anybody. I think this is just a miscalculation, again, at the university level here, because, even if there's some public outrage, if there's a board in place, and that's what I've heard from voices who I know that are on the inside looking out at this, is that if the boards are in place and the board saw fit based on performance and some of the achievements at Genesis and or the work that the Secor does with private entities, of which there are many, then if there's any sort of justification for the bonuses, then let's just have it explained. That's it. No less, no more. Remember when Alcor was getting those massive bonuses? Yep. Even though we're going through some of the boondoggles, they would say that some of the bonuses are directly linked to safety. Okay, at least, as flimsy as it might sound, it's at least a part of an answer, and consequently, through the work done by the Auditor General and public discourse, those things went by the wayside. It would be helpful just for the university's sake, given the tumultuous couple of years they've experienced, if they'd be a bit more forthcoming, as opposed to a legal challenge, which comes with legal bills and time and frustration. So I think they've made a miscalculation here. Final thoughts to you, Paul, before I have to get to the final break of the morning.
No, I agree, Paddy. And when you see these types of things happening, like I say, Memorial University is something that we've all been and should be proud of. And all they're doing is hurting their own reputation, in my view, when you get tangled up in these types of matters. So, again, I would hope that they could just voluntarily understand, what's being asked here, that it is reasonable, and simply release it. If they do continue to challenge it in court, like I said, hopefully they lose. If they don't, and there's some technicality here that allows MON and any other entity of government to simply set up corporations and hide information, if that should be what the court rules, then if we need to go into House Assembly and change the legislation to prevent that from happening in the future, then that's what we need to do, and I would certainly at that point in time call on the Premier and the Minister to do so.
Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Paddy. All the very best.
Thanks, Paul. Bye-bye.
All the best. Bye.
And now, they're not all the same type of entity either, right? Genesis as a business incubator, and Seacorp, which has been in business a long time, does a lot of work with the private sector. But and this is from a guy who knows, the Centre for Fisheries Innovation absolutely is housed at the Marine Institute, but my understanding is, once again, that this is an independent entity from the Marine Institute. I'll get clarification on that, but I'm pretty sure that's accurate. Final break of the morning. Tom's up next to talk about Kilbride, water and sewer. Graham with the last minute to talk about the food fishery petition. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Tom, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning to you.
I'm going to make a quick comment on the payments of those nurse practitioners and things, but I won't, because I want to hear what the gentleman has to say about the fishery, because I have people coming in from Quebec specifically for the fishery. So I'd like it to be 7 days a week, because it's crazy as it's not. The reason I'm calling, as you're probably aware, was because of a recent call I had made to you about where the city had put the sewer line through our area here in Kilbride, and then gave us not one bill for about $4,000, but also a second bill for $4,000. And the first bill is based on what they determined to be an average lot size in the city. And the second bill of approximately $4,400 is because we have oversized lots, because we have to have oversized lots in order to meet the provincial requirements to have a septic tank. So when we received all of these bills there a couple of, or about a month or so ago, then I started questioning what the heck is going on. And of course, all the residents start calling me, and I keep saying, listen, guys, I'm not the MHA, I'm not the council, but I'll do what I can. And I have been communicating with the people from the city to ask a whole bunch of questions about why we're required to pay this approximately $9,000. And, you know, this area in particular in the city is filled with seniors. And a lot of people are hard-pressed to be able to come up with $9,000. Now, I specifically asked them, how much did this project cost and where did all the money come from? And the project was an $11 million project. They're going to get $1 million back for HST rebates. The feds gave $4 million, and the province gave $3 million. And it says ultimate recipient contribution, I would assume that's us, is $3 million. And so far, they've spent $8 million. Now, I'm a little confused about all of this, you know. Why are we being required to pick up, you know, approximately $3 million, I would assume? What's the city paying? I'm not getting answers to any of these questions. So, you know, I don't know what to do. And the issue becomes one of the first $4,000 is an interest-bearing one. If you don't pay it by tomorrow, you start paying interest at 15%. And the other one, I guess, that sits as a lien against your property. So that's the situation we're faced with. So for the people who have been calling me, I have the answers to all the questions I asked, but I'm no further ahead. I don't know where to proceed from here. So.
One of the strangest parts about all this, because I remember when the plea coming from Kilbride to have these services put in, because if you're paying property tax like everybody else, you should think you're going to get the same type of services. The problem that initially began with the fact that, okay, approval was given to put the water and sewer in, but the residents weren't told they were on the hook. And then all of a sudden, in the mailbox was the bill. So if the conversation had to include, here's how it's going to work, here's how much we think it's going to cost, here's what we think your individual contribution will be, then we would have at least had a fulsome conversation versus just out of the blue, here's your bill.
That was the big issue I raised with the city when I did this, and I said, when you send us the bill out of the blue, you included a 2021 letter that said that there was a project coming by and you were getting water and sewer. Of course, we never got water. And I asked that question as one of my questions to the city, why didn't we get water? And it's technically not feasible to get water. I don't understand it. The water treatment plant on Ruby Line is just above us there. And gravity still exists as far as I know. But they've had to dig, I think at last count, 7 artesian wells because people lost their water. The city had to pay for this at about $25,000 a pop. There were some major screw-ups from an engineering perspective where people down the road from us got flooding because basically the road is running through a pond. And as early as last couple of days, they've been down digging up the ditches again. So, I got more questions than I got answers, and I don't know where to go from this other than, I'm going to pay my interest-bearing one tomorrow because I don't want to be dealing with interest. But if somebody out there's got some advice to me as to how to proceed with it, I don't know what to do. I think it's absolutely crazy that we're being asked to pay for something that the federal government mandated the city that they had to do. You cannot put sewage in Shoal Harbour anymore. You have to bring it to the treatment plant. So, okay, we understand that and we appreciate that. But I got one person in our area who's 83 years of age, who is approximately 500 feet from the road. It's uphill. You'd have to put in a special pump. You'd have to go through a cliff. It would cost him $50,000 to hook on to the bloody thing. So naturally, he's not going to do it. And he has to pay the $4,000.
Yeah, it's a strange set of circumstances, and a lot of it sounds just unfair because people weren't even in the know. Tom, I appreciate the time this morning. I want to sneak in one more quick one before the end of the show.
I know, yes, and I want to listen to this too because I got people coming from Quebec this summer for the fishery. So
okay,
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Okay. Bye-bye. Last word goes to Graham Wood on 3. Graham, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How you doing?
Doing great. You?
Good. Wonderful. This is the last day for our petition, and we're up to a little over 3,900 now. And we were hoping to get to 5, but anyway, we're almost up to 4, and this is the last day for people across the country, really, who are interested in supporting the petition. They can go into ourcommons.ca and look for petition 4781, E4781, and they can sign it till 5 o'clock today.
And for folks who don't know, we're talking about expanding it from 39 days offered at the 11th hour to 90 days, a much more accessible opportunity for people to get out and catch something for their plate. I appreciate the time, Graham. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much, Patty. I'm sure we'll keep you updated. We'll hopefully have it presented in Parliament early in March.
I appreciate the update when one is available.
Thank you.
Thanks, Graham.
Take care.
You're welcome. You too. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands who support the program, and we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.